Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, we're still living in a COVID continuous world, and one of the things that people are focusing on during these times, apart from your health, of course, is the fact that everybody wants a house of their own, especially with work from home coming in such a big way. There has been a huge demand, or so we feel from sitting here in the studios, for people to own their own houses, to be safe in a residential complex. And also because there is the work from home happening, people don't have to sit, buy something in the high price metros. You can actually look for places slightly far away from your workplace, but places where you can actually work towards having your home. It's an irony because at one point the cost of construction has gone up, the migration, the labors, there is a migration problem. We don't know what's happening in that front, whether construction is happening or not. And then there is that shadow of Unitech, Supertech, and all these builders defaulting looming large over our heads also. So, how viable is your dream? Is the dream to own your own home in today's situation? Is something I'm going to be talking to a panel of experts, people from the industry, stakeholders, and also I want to find out what are the expectations from the general budget, which is due in a week's time. So, joining me on the show is Amit Goyal. He is the CEO at Sadhbhi's Realty. We have Mr. Arvind Subramaniam. He is MD and CEO at Mahindra Life Spaces Development Limited. We have Shiva Krishnan. He is the India head as residential services at JLL. And Amir Basrich, he is senior Supreme Court advocate and also a managing partner at International Law Affiliates. So he's going to be telling us how much does the law save your investment or not. So I'll begin with you, Amit. You and I have been having this conversation, which is how we actually began the show. What is the situation? Would you advise people that this is the right time to buy that first home, forget the second home, or do you think this situation is very fluid? So, save your money for now.
Absolutely, Priya. I would very strongly advise, and more than I have ever said this, that this is the right time or the best time to buy a home. For our home buyers, there are many people who've been sitting on the fence for very long because markets have been volatile. But I think now we are set for a recovery in prices. The demand has been very robust. Equity markets all-time high, interest rates all-time low. They all make it a compelling, timing or the reason for one to take a decision.
I have Amit, who's actually based in Delhi right now, Arvind in Mumbai, and Shiva in Chennai. So we are going to give you hopefully a wide perspective. But Arvind, what is your take? Would you, now is a good time or save your pennies? Though I know that's not really in your best interest, but what would you advise?
Look, I mean, as you prompted me, every time is a good time, particularly to buy your first home. And while I say that half in jest, most of our consumers, particularly the mid-market and affordable consumers, for them, owning a home is like a lifelong aspiration. And they've been saving for multiple years to buy a home. So it's not an impulse decision. And, I always strongly recommend when you're buying a home to live in, don't try and time the market. Because don't see it as a financial product where I have to try and buy low, sell high. It's a product you're going to consume over the next 20 years. Your family is probably going to consume it beyond your lifetime. So it's not about timing. It's about finding the right product for yourself.
Your first take, Shiva. Okay, everybody's going to say yes. So let me just broaden the question a bit, Shiva. Where would you advise people to buy a home? Is this a good time to look outside the metros?
See, I'll start with the first question itself, then we'll come back to the second question, Priya. See, if you look at factually, why do you think that it's the best time to buy the product? Now, the revival of the industry, revival of the housing started from 2019 itself. And then we had COVID in 2020. And we all felt that it will take at least 3-4 years for the housing to revive. But COVID turned out to be a blessing in disguise for all of us. One important factor which drives real estate in India is housing loan rates. And it's at below 7%. I have seen these rates only in 2003, 2004. And after the last 15 years, I've never seen rates going below 7%. So that's one important aspect why you're seeing surge in housing. The second aspect we call this an affordable synergy. When I say affordable synergy is that 2013 to 2020, developers are all going through a lot of mess in terms of sales, in terms of construction delays. And we had 3 tsunamis also. We had demonetization, GST, RERA, which actually crippled the whole sector and which pulled the market down. And the prices were actually kind of not going up. and developers became quite wary about the fact that how do I take the price up. So you have a wonderful synergy of stability in pricing and the rates, which is actually triggering the market. Plus the COVID. The COVID is actually creating a lot of inherent desire for the customer to own a home, whether it's end user, whether you want to upgrade from 1 BHK to 2 BHK or 2 BHK to 3 BHK, or even from moving from an apartment to a villa. So one important thing which we are witnessing after COVID is transformation in plotted development. Now, before COVID, it was only an investor who will go and buy a property as far as plot is concerned. Now you're seeing end users going towards plotted, and grade A developers, I'm sure, whether it's Mahindra's, whether it is Godrej, whether it is large developers, Prestige, everybody is looking at plotted development. So a lot of transformation, positive things happened in the system in last roughly 3 years. There was a small kind of a deceleration during the COVID time. After that, there's been a great going for last 3 years for housing sector. With respect to moving out from the peripheries, I think it's early days. Now, what has happened, Priya, is that most of the developers have been focusing on relevant products. We all burned fingers in 2008 to 2013 when the market was doing well from 2007 to 2010, going to second homes, large spaced size properties, and they all burned because of the issue. So I think it's early days. It will pick up, but I think it will take at least 12 to 18 months time for second homes to pick up. I'm not saying that there is no movement, but in terms of volumes, what we are seeing is completed products, then affordable housing, mid-level housing, and followed with plots. This is what we're witnessing in last 18, 24 months time, Priya.
I'll ask you to focus on the third tsunami that he talked about, RERA. Is it a tsunami that builders see it, or is it a blessing for home buyers? And does it protect the rights of home buyers? We've all been burned by Unitech, Supertech, and other big builders defaulting. Godrej also, reliable names that are defaulting.
Well, I mean, these two cases are very interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, Siva, if you don't mind, because this is a little bit of post-mortem that's happening here. I think that these two are very special cases, and I don't think they should hit your whole industry as hard as they seem to have in terms of perception. There's a lot of, wrong feelings about the real estate sector because of what happened to the families of the promoters, what happened in the Supreme Court with specific instances of particular buildings, demolitions, this word, this four-letter word beginning with J that seems to come up too often in connection with promoters. It's all fine, but actually they should understand that the legal frameworks in India have been growing to protect the consumer more than anything else. So when you look at the Act RERA, it should have come perhaps 40 years ago. Having brought it out in 2016 is unfortunate, because that means that we didn't think about what was the interest of the consumer who was suffering at the hands of many builders. And the builders were not wrong to have, unfortunately, excuse my language, but idiotic agreements. They were so tilted in favor of the builder that somebody had to fix that at some point. And so RERA came about. So RERA was born to redress an imbalance that was created by a vacuum, rather than redress an imbalance that was created by necessity. So what happens is now we have the courts trying to fix that. And a lot of people don't understand that the Unitech battle, for example, starts even before RERA. It actually starts to do with something else, the Companies Act. It starts with issues relating to the PMLA, prevention of money laundering. So this has an impact on a whole industry. And this is all that hits the headlines. The industry per se, which I understand has 500 big players, 500 big players. And I've seen them in court. We've argued a matter together in the Competition Commission, where all these people were together in a room, and you suddenly realize how there are very disparate interests. There are very small builders, there's different perspectives on that. And I don't think the ghosts of Unitech or Supertech will be haunting the industry forever. They have to slowly die out. And we have to look at the future in a more positive manner, the way they're talking about the markets growing and looking at each builder for what it can deliver. And there are very good players out there also.
Amit, let's take the positive note at face value for now, and I will go into the details later. But where would you, are people looking, in your view, are they looking for, looking in condos, or are they looking for plots and builders' flats? Where is the demand headed?
Yeah, Priya, demand is more we see, especially post-pandemic, for the low-rise, houses, be it a bungalow or a villa, or even floors, builder floors in smaller, in localities where the height of the building is not really, more than 3 or 4 stories, right? So that's where we see the demand emerging. We also see a lot of demand for the farmhouses. So that's a space where we see, good response from most of the buyers. Most of the inventory has been picked up, and they are not necessarily, on the outskirts, but they are also, good demand for 2, 3, 4 hour drivable distance from the cities where people can buy their home, which could be used as a secondary home or a weekend home. Today, that work from anywhere situation. And we did a recent survey where 69% of the respondents said that they don't perceive or expect to work from office all 5 days, and they would continue to work from home or their holiday home, etc., especially in the luxury space. Right? So that's where we see more demand.
Arvind, sorry.
Yeah, if I might add something to that. Now, wise person told me what you see depends on where you sit. So for us sitting in Mumbai, builder floors, low rises is really not an option given the land economy of Mumbai. What we are seeing in our business, and we largely operate in what we call the affordable and the mid-market space, so apartments from about 30 lakhs to, let's say, about 4 crores. Now, we are seeing robust demand across that entire spectrum. And particularly over the last year, the 9 months so far of the financial year, there's been a very, very sharp bounce back of demand.
I'm going to take a break and come back and keep the conversation going, and also ask everyone the expectations of this sector from the union budget. So stay with us. We're here taking a look, at the real estate sector, because that is something that affects everyone, each one of us. Shiva, you heard the conversation before the break. Would you agree that, people do want a house, but is the demand for apartments, is the demand for a plot or builders' flats? In terms of content, what are people looking at?
I agree with Arvind. See, it's from where you look at it. Close to 60 to 70% of the total volume absorption in terms of sales is contributed by 3 cities, which is Bangalore, Mumbai, and NCR, for that matter. So 90 to 95% of the volume comes from apartments, which could be high rise, it could be a 4-story building. Most of the consumption is happening from this sector. And when COVID started, when the rates started falling, it was completed, ready to move in properties, which is getting traction, then followed with under construction. And I said, as we started moving towards the journey because of work from home and because of other aspects coming in because of COVID, we saw a movement towards end users moving into a plotted development. But in terms of the total volume, the plots, the farmhouses, the villas will not be even more than 2-3% of the total consumption from an India perspective is concerned. So today, from a volume and from a availability perspective, it's only apartments and large flats which is possible. But to be very fair with what's happening, all segments are firing, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's middle level housing, whether it is a luxury segment, whether it's a plots, everything is doing good in last 18, 19 months time. But my only worry is 2 aspects. One is that the inflation is shooting up. Hopefully RBI should not go and try to cut the liquidity, and that can reverse the interest rate, which is a prime mover for the surge today. The second important point is the commodity prices. The commodity price is also going up. I don't know whether developers can hold on to these prices for a long time, because they've been holding on to the prices for the last 8 years. I'll just give a small comparison, Priya. Last 8 years, if you keep 100 rupees as a base price, the average increase in almost 7 cities around 1 to 2%. So it has only gone by 1 or 2%. So there could be products which has gone by 10%, 14%. On an average is about 1%. So what happens, Priya, is that if you take inflation adjusted pricing, the price have actually gone down. So I don't think the developers can hold on to these rates for long. So the first question, great time, best time for customers to go and make the decision of buy, because buy is as important as exit. So if somebody wants to exit as an investor, buying is also important. If you miss the bus in the next 6 to 8 months time, you'll see pricing going up. There is no way the developers can hold on to pricing.
That's a note of caution that in what he has said, Arvind, which is what how will this unrealistic pricing actually, if the prices go up, will the buyers suffer? Will developers then default on projects? Is that a real fear also? Arvind?
Look, firstly, I think Shiva brought up a very, very pertinent and important point. Commodity prices are at all-time highs. You take everything, cement, steel, plastics, aluminium, copper, they're all trading at historical highs. Oil price, as we are seeing over the last couple of weeks, has gone up significantly. That's going to drive downstream impacts on pretty much every input material. So that cost does have to be passed on in many different ways or absorbed. What many developers like us are doing is we're trying to defray that in 3 or 4 aspects. One is go back to the drawing board and drive value engineering. Try and get 1 or 2 percentage points of efficiency from design and construction methods. The second is procurement. How do you consolidate your purchases, drive efficiencies and scale for procurement? But there will be a part that we are having to pass on to consumers. And if you look at some of the prime micro markets over the last year, price has gone up by at least 4 to 6% on an average. And like Shiva was pointing out, there are projects that have gone up even 10, 12, 15% depending on demand. So that is going to be the nature of the game in the quarters to come. I don't see a way out of that. And therefore, consumers, from that perspective, it's a good time to buy now before that price hike, really accelerates. It's already happening. It's not something that we're talking about in the future.
But I mean, are you reassured by especially what Amir said also that, the Unitech and all that thing is in the past? There is still cases of builders defaulting. So would you advise, you do a lot of advice, real estate, would you say don't go in for big under construction projects, builders projects, but at least go in for, smaller projects that have a closer finishing line?
Priya, that's a great question, and the buyers need to be very cautious when they are buying under construction. They should buy with credible developers. The good thing is there are many more and more, credible developers who are into diversified large business groups, just like Mahindra, which Arvind represents, and companies like Tata, Godrej, Birla, Adani. There are many such large groups now, which are coming up with such good developments. So one should be cautious that the developer must have the good track record. They must have the right experience, the right financial muscle to be able to complete the project, and all the approvals must be in place. So somebody buying a project which is too futuristic, where all approvals are yet to come, and the project is really a greenfield sort of project, one should avoid. At the same time, buyer also must understand that how much is their risk appetite. You see, when somebody is buying pre-construction or in the early stage, they are also getting the price benefit, right? So one would buy at a much lower price as compared to something which is ready to move in. So it's a kind of risk reward that one has to assess and then take a call. But most of our buyers who are not really well informed or have too much time, they're busy with their work, with their own life, they should rather look for properties which are either completed or they are near completion or they are coming from very, very credible groups.
Good advice, in fact, especially for people in the professional salary class. But Shiva, your take on this, you're the one who started this conversation. Will the cost suddenly go out of control? Will the market spin out of control once the rising costs hit the developers?
So, my point was not that the cost will go out of the control, because the developers have been holding on to the price for a long time. And the margins have shrunk from an early 30, 40, 50% to a very, very minimal 20, 25%. I don't think the margins are beyond 20%. So if you take post-taxation, they hardly make any kind of a margin at this juncture. So what I'm trying to say is that with so much of pressure points coming from various aspects, one is commodity prices, You also made a very pertinent point, Priya, saying that the labor movement, migration in last 2 years' time, the availability of labor is very, very minimal in some of the places. The cost of labor has gone up. And why developers are not cutting price? Basically because of last 8-9 years have been extremely bad for developers. So developers are looking at cash flows today. So they want to get cash flows today. Margins are not very important. And that phase will get over at some point of time. And so that's my point. So, and also I'll tell you, it's important that the prices also need to go up in the industry, because that's also important for any industry. Margins needs to be there, because developers are not here for charity. At the end of the day, they are here to make money. So the prices needs to go up, but I'm sure the lessons have been learned by developers. They will not take the price up by 30%, 40%, 50% on a year-on-year basis, which used to happen in 2008 to 2013, which pulled the whole sales down. And to another point, Priya, on the people siphoning off and getting into another project. See, there is a significant difference between pre-RERA and post-RERA. And there are enough controls in place where you cannot just move money from one project to another project. Plus, an important aspect is that all cities, the number of developers have shrunk by as high as 60%. If you take 2008 to 2022 today, the number of developers have been shrunk by almost 60-70%. Now you have credible developers only available in the market with track record. There could be an one-off case of aberration available, but I'm saying by and large, last 8-9 years, with all those regulations and structures in place, has cleansed the system. So to great extent, I think that RERA has brought in the much needed the structure and organized way of looking at business. So I think it's going to be a great journey for next, at least for 3-4 years, even though we all know that residential real estate is highly cyclical in nature, where things will go up and down. But I think this will be sustainable at least for next 2-3 years time.
Yeah, if I may just connect the dots between, just a quick comment to connect the dots between what Shiva and Amit said on pricing. And I'll talk about it from a consumer lens. It is very important that pricing goes up steadily, because why would somebody buy under construction if they're not seeing price appreciation over time? And as Shiva rightly pointed out, the idea is not that it should go up 15-20% year on year, but certainly 6-8% annual increase in pricing is good for the industry. It's good for the consumer as well.
Good point. Amit, it shows that the new RERA is, Shiva's given us a reassuring note that, our interests are safe as home buyers. Would you also give the same guarantee that or at least the same reassurance that one should not worry as much as we did pre-RERA?
Which is that, these people, particularly professionals with less time, and that would count lawyers also, tend to go in blindfolded. So I have seen my own colleagues in the High Court having invested in a project which they didn't bother to do the due diligence on, even though they are lawyers. You see, so what he says is don't, and I think Amit also said it, don't go for greenfield projects, because that's quite risky. I personally feel that buyers should go for a project that's near completion, that's safer, and you know where you're headed, and you know you've got a fairly decent, secure investment. It may not be good for the industry in the sense that, they want to get the capital in while the project is going forth and all that. But in India, there are many hiccups on the way. And unless you've got a very, very stable builder who's got an amazing track record, I think that the consumer should look towards little later stage investment in a project that is nearing completion or very much there. That's one. Though RERA has protected them a lot more than before, so RERA should give them the confidence to move forward in a more easier manner. That's one. The second thing I feel is also, I think the advice should go out that people should be a little more diligent with their inquiries. What happens is this blindfolded approach. It's almost embarrassing when you ask a builder, I want to see this and I want to see that. And they look at you like, you've got to be really different. All our other buyers come in and they don't ask questions. And why are you asking them? But we've got to learn to ask those questions. Because if you read the agreements, it says you're deemed to have accepted all that information. And I think we should teach the consumer to ask the questions, go into common sense approach and deal with it on that basis.
That's a very valuable lesson given here. Shiva, you wanted to come in and say something?
Just one quick point. This Amir was suggesting saying that the customers should look at ready-to-move properties or closer to move. It's also a choice of the customer. I'll tell you the reason why. Because affordability also comes in terms of the flexibility in terms of making payments. So some of the customers, ideally, most of the customers would like to compartmentalize the payment over a period of next 2-3 years time. So they may not have the money to pay upfront certain amount of money to move in. So the bulk of the customers are the middle level income housing, middle level income people, which is about 8 to 10, 15 lakhs from a Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad perspective, could be different from a Bombay perspective. So it's a choice of the customers also to buy under construction properties. My only limited point was RERA regulates in terms of unwanted disturbances, in terms of siphoning of the money, in terms of buying another plot, another land, which used to be the case pre-RERA. Today, there are a lot more strictures, a lot more standards in place, which will limit some of the movements of money. That was my point.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree that there are far more, controls and checks and balances on the builder. I'm just saying that if you have a less well-recognized builder, then certainly it's safer to go for the later development. That's all.
I have to tell you all, I have an ulterior motive in doing this show because I have invested in an under construction project, and it's only after investing that I learned all these things which you are telling me is, someone very wisely informed me of all these things. So I thought it's a good thing to educate our viewers also, the pros and cons of investing. But we didn't get to know, ask you what the budget. So if I have quickly one quick wish list on the budget, Arvind, beginning with you.
Yeah, from a residential perspective, input tax credit on GST, I think, is an important one. From an industrial parks perspective, which is our other business, liberalization of the special economic zone rules so that SEZ units can also sell into domestic markets. I think those are the two big asks I would have.
Shiva, for you, what are the big asks?
I only have one ask, because the one which can trigger the volume in real estate industry housing, that is, try to create, increase the limit of deduction, which is currently at a certain number, to 5 to 6 lakhs as far as the interest deduction is concerned, and also remove the principal housing loan repayment from ATC. These two things can bring in a lot of surge in the housing. And this one thing can revive the consumption industry, which is purely the real estate market, which can turn around a lot of other aspects of economy. So these two simple moves can create a lot of value within the system.
Amit, do you have any expectations for the...
Yes, Priya, I'll give you two other points besides what my co-panelist said. One being removal of GST on under construction properties, because buyers are already paying stamp duty when they're buying a home. So additional 5% GST should be removed. And secondly, the TDS rate, the withholding tax rate, or when NRIs are selling properties, is extremely high. Currently, that is in the range of 28-29%. So I would request and appeal the government to reconsider that and maybe reduce that number, because those kind of gains are not there actually, and people have to really struggle to take their refund, especially the non-resident Indians who are not spending time in India.
Very well. So thank you all for really an enlightening discussion, and I think I'm going to have you all back again soon to keep our viewers and your consumers answer all their questions and doubts. But thank you so much for this conversation.
Thanks, Priya.